reality, counting it on the way. All of my blessings knocking on the door today. Toys and it's all the same, dreaming reality.
Thank you for dropping in for your dose of crazy happiness and a quick hit of positivity. Welcome to episode 116. I'm your host, Tanya Vetter of TanyaVetter.com. Today's episode is being brought to you by Women Empowerment Training Institute, empowering women and youth through engagement and exposure. Check out all of the great work that they are doing in the community. Check them out, guys. We had an amazing time at the Covenant House Homeless Shelter for young adults who are 18 through 30 years old. I really enjoyed the work that they are doing. I enjoyed being a part of it. And I need you to help them continue the work that they are doing in the community by donating and going to theweedy.org. Well, hello, guys. Welcome to episode 116. I am dubbing today Money Monday. Yes, just get used to it. I think I am going to start having some either motivating Mondays or Money Monday. And today is definitely a Money Monday. I am so excited and elated, enthusiastic. Can you hear it? About today's episode, because we are featuring Dr. Dennis Kimbro. Oh my God, guys. I have been fascinated with his work and steeped into it over the weekend. And my mom actually got me this book. You know, I'm all things about books. I love books. And this month, my yummy book. This month, my yummy book is The Wealth Choice by Dr. Dennis Kimbro. The Wealth Choice, Success Secrets of Black Millionaires. And let me share with you, I've just gotten started. So if you want to grab your copy, check it out. I'm sure it's on Amazon. I'm sure it's at Barnes & Noble. I'm sure it's online. But this is a fascinating book. And I'm just digging my heels into it. But let me tell you why I believe it's fascinating. I believe it's going to be fascinating. I've thumbed through it and I see that it's already pivotal work. But it's based on a 7-year study that Dr. Kimbro did. Not only is it a best-selling book, but it's based on a 7-year study that he did of 1,000 of the wealthiest African Americans. And let me say this, I don't bring up race that often on this podcast, but when you can get that many wildly successful African Americans and Black millionaires, I think that is a story that's worth pausing for and listening to. And here's why I say that. Anytime we talk about African Americans who are wealthy, right, and successful, we hear the same names all the time. We hear the Oprah Winfreys. We hear the same names all the time. And I love this idea of ordinary people doing some really ordinary things, right? Notice I said doing some really ordinary things consistently over time. And he's going to share what he is calling the laws of wealth. And so in today's episode, he's going to give us 7 laws of wealth. And I want to share this with you guys. Wealth is more about our mindset than it is about our money. And a lot of times we get that confused. We think that being wealthy is about our money. And actually, our money is just a byproduct of what our mindset is. Let's check out Dr. Kimbro.
When I got my PhD degree from Northwestern University, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I certainly knew what I didn't want to do. Many of my classmates couldn't wait to go to Wall Street. They were going to make a killing in the stock market. I'm not knocking that. I didn't want to go into corporate America, nor did I want to teach. All I wanted to do, I wanted to find the answers to 2 questions. Question number 1, why does one individual succeed while another fails? And question number 2, why is one individual rich and wealthy while another is impoverished? So I carved out a list of 50 individuals, Black men and women, who not only carved their name on the tablet of success, They climbed the back stairs to success. They didn't know me, but I certainly knew them, and I was going to interview them, trying to ascertain the answers to those two questions. Well, lo and behold, that list of 50 grew from 50 to 100, from 100 to 150. I quit counting at 150 interviews. Based upon my research, Success Magazine asked me to write an article, and I complied. Well, that particular article found the desk of W. Clement Stone. I just flew back from New York. I had interviewed Earl Graves, the publisher of Black Enterprise magazine. And when I got to my Atlanta home, there was a message on my answering machine. It was from W. Clement Stone. He said, "Young man, we heard about you. When can you come to Chicago? I would like to meet you." Well, 2 weeks later, me and my wife, we fly to Chicago, and we went to W. Clement Stone's office. There in his palatial office is Mr. Stone, seated behind a mahogany desk, smoking one of his Havana cigars with a bright flowered polka dot bow tie on. And he said to me, he said, "Young man, you're not the first person to go around this country interviewing successful African Americans." And I said, "I'm not?" And he says, "No." He says, "You know, Napoleon Hill was doing this at the time of his death." I said, "Are you serious?" He says, "More than serious." He reached across his credenza, pulled out the last 100 written pages of Napoleon Hill and dropped it in my lap. At the time of his death, Napoleon Hill was attempting to write a black version of his all-time classic, Think and Grow Rich. He got 100 pages into the manuscript before dying of a stroke. He was 87 years old. And W. Clement Stone held on to those 100 pages for 16 years until November 3rd, 1986, when I walked into his office. And I'm here to tell you that over a 7-year period, I like to tell people that I discovered the DNA to black wealth. Wealth is not a function of circumstance. It is not a function of condition. It is not a function of race, of gender, who your parents are, which side of the tracks you were born, how the cards were dealt. But wealth is a function of choice, and it is a function of discipline, and it is a function of decision, and it is a function of innovation, faith, and creativity. Those men and women who have won most in life have relied mostly on themselves. The men and women who are crazy enough to believe and think that they can change the world usually do. So this is a story that must be told. This is the story of black men and women who went from poverty, and in some cases below poverty, to reach their financial goals and objectives, and no one placed a microphone or a ball in their hand to do it. The first law of wealth is knowledge. Prosperity and wealth begins in the mind, but ends in the purse. We live and have our being in a capitalistic economy, and capitalism is not a dirty word. Capitalism is predicated upon the following fact: if you want to earn more, I suggest that you learn more. What I found in the focus groups that the average black millionaire reads 3 to 4 books a month. The average black millionaire only watches 4 hours of TV a night. That equates to 28 hours of TV a week, when the average African American watches more than 75 hours of TV a week. I had a great interview with Antonio L.A. Reid of X Factor. And he shared with me that at one point in life, when he was the president of LaFace Records, he took 8 to 10 weeks out of his busy schedule to take a management executive course at Harvard. And I said to him, I said, "Antonio, what would compel you to do that? You and Babyface probably made more money over your lifetime with LaFace Records than you can spend in 10 different lifetimes. Why would you take an executive course at Harvard?" He said, "Well, number one, the bottom line, the record business is a business. But I learned long time ago that the moment that you cease to grow, that you dedicate yourself to lifelong learning, you begin to die. If you don't take in the information, if you don't read the books, if you don't study, and if you don't grow, somewhere out in the universe, somebody else will. And the moment that you meet that other person, you lose." The second law is decision. You've got to make a conscious choice that poverty will have no place in your life. As Steve Harvey told me when I had a chance to sit down and chat with him, you got to make life choices before life makes those choices for you. I had a great interview with a gentleman by the name of Victor McFarlane. Victor McFarlane is the founder of McFarlane Partners, a real estate developer out in the Bay Area in San Francisco. And here is a gentleman who is well on his way to joining the ranks of billionaireship. And he was born and raised in a blue-collar working class town in Ohio to a single parent. And he told me that the first 12 years of his life, he lived in a 1-bedroom apartment, and his mother had a couch in the foyer area of that apartment. And for the first 12 years of his life, that couch substituted as the bed that Victor and his sister slept on. And when he shared that anecdote with me, I became somewhat sympathetic and empathetic, and he cut me off at the knees during the interview. And he said, "Doc, no sympathy for me. As a matter of fact, those were probably the best 12 years of my life." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "It was during the 12-year period that I made a conscious decision that poverty would have no place in my life." You've got to make these life choices. At the counter of success, there are no bargains. You've got to pay the price, and you've got to pay it in full. The average individual is bombarded with 50 million different choices day in and day out. And the majority of those choices we don't have to address, we can avoid. But there are 2 choices that you must look and confront as soon as you wake up in the morning. Number 1, you can accept the circumstances as they are, or number 2, you can take the responsibility to change them. Make life choices before life makes those choices for you. The 3rd law of wealth, you got to believe in yourself when no one else will. Here is the one quality, here is the one value that has created more black millionaires than any other attribute. You see, it was faith that will allow Kathy Hughes to endure more than 60 rejections trying to find financing for her first radio station. You see, it was faith that would allow Bob Johnson, no matter where he was with his struggling BET station, he would get on a plane, fly back to Chicago, get a rent-a-car, drive to the home of McDonald's and sit in the lobby of McDonald's headquarters, hoping to find anybody in the marketing department so he could pitch his BET station to. He was trying to find a major sponsor. And it was faith that would allow Damon John to get his struggling FUBU apparel line off the ground. And I said to Damon, Damon, what was the defining moment in your life? And he said to me, when I had to burn the furniture. I said, "What do you mean burn the furniture?" He said, "When I finally got financing for my apparel line, I went out and I hired a bunch of seamstresses, and they showed up at my mother's house with all their equipment, and I had no place to store their sewing machines." I said, "What did you do?" He said, "I took all my mother's furniture out of the house, took it to the backyard, and I set it on fire." The wealthy make money while the rest of us make excuses. If you knew who walks beside you on this journey called life, you would never doubt or fear again. And then last but not least, there I am with Tyler Perry. And I asked him, I said, "Tyler, how did you go from poverty, in some circumstances, below poverty, to build one of the most profitable, production companies in Hollywood, $145 million. And his simple reply was, "Nothing but the grace of God. Believe in yourself when no one else will." The 4th law of wealth, to thy own self be true. What is the greatest resource in the world? The greatest resource in the world is the passionate, committed mind. What have you been sent here to do? Do you know your area of excellence? What is your life's purpose? And these black millionaires, they know specifically what they are attempting to do and what they will do. They know their life's purpose. They know their area of excellence. And if you're going to identify your area of excellence, you've got to ask yourself 3 critical questions. Question number 1, what do I love to do? What do I have a passion for? What can I throw my whole heart and soul into? Question number 2, what would I do for free? If no one ever paid me a dime, if no one ever gave me a financial reward for my efforts, what would I do for free? Because when you're doing what you love to do and you would do it for free, your work is your play. And if your work is your play, you'll never work a day in your life. And question number 3, if you can't answer the 2 questions, go to those people who you respect and admire and ask, what do you see me as? What do you think I would be good at doing? The average individual in our society gets 4 ideas a year, any one of which, if they had the guts, the courage, the fortitude to chase their dream, will make them financially independent. What is the music that is beating in your heart? What is your life's purpose? If you didn't show up at this particular hour, this particular moment in time, what would the world miss? A career is what you're paid for, but a calling is what you're made for. The 5th law of wealth, how may I serve thee? Service is the price you pay for the space that you occupy, and anybody can serve. I don't care where you are in life, as I discovered in my focus groups and one-on-one interviews with these black millionaires. Anybody can add value. Anybody can wow the customer. Anybody can be the most positive person in the room. Anybody can increase sales, and we can all serve. I want you to take this formula, burn it in your subconscious. Q plus MA equals C. The quality of your service plus the quantity of your service plus the mental attitude in which it is rendered always equals compensation. People will make you rich or people will make you poor depending upon the level of your service. Who taught me that? Valerie Daniels Carter. Valerie Daniels Carter here is a black woman who owns minimum 121 fast food franchises. More than 100 fast food franchises between Burger King and Pizza Hut alone. And what she told me is that anyone can serve. I had a great interview with a young gentleman in Detroit. He's a young millionaire out of Detroit. And when he graduated from college, the only job that he could get was working in one of the top restaurants in the Detroit area. But he took that job and he was passionate and he was thankful for even having the opportunity to work there. And it showed in his countenance and it showed in his service and behavior. Well, one day, one of the highest ranking black females from McDonald's came in there to eat with her husband. She was so impressed with his passion and the way that he delivered service, doing more than what is expected, doing more than what was required. And after leaving a sizable tip, she left her business card on that table. And that business card, on the back of it, she wrote, "Young man, if you are ever interested in owning and operating a restaurant for yourself, please call me first." Well, a couple of months later, he took her up on that offer and he called that number. And she was strategic and Ken Brown buying his first 2 McDonald's restaurants. Add value, wow the customer. Service is the price you pay for the space that we occupy. The 6th law of wealth, thou shalt be in business for thyself. Years ago, I'm in the book line study of Bishop T.D. Jakes. And I'm seated in his study and I'm looking at every book on God's green earth that you would ever want to read, study, or examine in your life. And all of a sudden, here Bishop Jakes walks in. And what do we know about Bishop T.D. Jakes? Well, number one, they told him he would never make it in the ministry. He left Charleston, West Virginia with only 8 members. He didn't finish high school. He went back to get his GED. He has a heavy lisp. And I brought that up during the time of our interview. And I said to him, I said, "Bishop," I said, "how in the world did you go from Charleston, West Virginia with only 8 members to building the Potter's House, 191,000 square foot facility with a value of more than $45 million. And he said to me, he says, "Well, young man, my critics weren't altogether wrong. I do have a heavy lisp, and if you hear close enough, you can listen to it, you can hear it." But then he said, "I don't care whether I had to spit, I don't care whether I had to stutter, I don't care whether I had to stammer. I had something to say, and I was going to say it." I said, "Well, Bishop, give me the keys to wealth, give me the keys to prosperity, give me the keys to owning and operating your own business." And he said to me, he said, "Give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach him how to fish, and you feed him for a lifetime. But show him how he can buy the pond and no one in his family will ever know struggle." You got to understand this, people. The wealthy work for profits. They do not work for wages. They think 1099, not W-2. The poor keep score by cars and clothes. The middle class, they keep score by degrees and titles. But the wealthy, they keep score by their bank accounts. In today's economy, if you are living off of a single paycheck, you are probably unemployed. And again, Mike Roberts said to me, one half of the Roberts brothers who were on par to be joined billionaire status based in St. Louis, if not now, when? And if not you, why not? And the final law to wealth, number 7, make thy money grow. Never forget, wealth is not what you earn, it's what you keep. If you cannot save 10 to 15% of all your earnings, the seeds of greatness aren't in you. And as a college professor, I know it's tough. I know it's difficult out there for the average African American. I can give you all the data that you want to hear. I know that 27% of African Americans spend more on a weekly basis than what they bring in. 30% have no savings plan at all. I know that 35% of African American children are born and raised in poverty. More than 40% of Black Americans don't even use their bank or a financial institution for their weekly or monthly business transactions. but here is the way out. I know if you cannot start with savings, I know if you cannot buy stocks, if you cannot make your money grow, then begin to retire all debt. Black America, we are the 16th wealthiest country on the face of the earth. Every year, $1.2 trillion in consumer dollars goes through our hands with absolutely nothing to show for it. I was on a radio show just recently and the host said to me, he said, Dr. K, he says, what is $1.2 trillion? And I said, it's easy. I want you to take Bill Gates of Microsoft. I want you to take Warren Buffett of Berkshire Hathaway and take Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook, add them together and multiply that by 10. That is $1.2 trillion. Make your money grow. Begin to retire all debt. And before I close out, I've got to tell you that this is not your normal finance book. I tell my readers, and when I crisscross this country and go all across the globe, the wealth choice is not about cash, it's about courage. I'm not telling my readers and I'm not telling my followers to take out a sheet of paper, take out a legal pad, draw a line down the center, and on one side write your assets and on the other side write your liabilities. It takes courage to chase your dream. It takes courage to believe in yourself when no one else will. It takes courage to put yourself on a daily budget. It takes courage to save 10% of everything that you earn. And it takes courage to find a new set of friends, because the personal friends that you associate with right now don't believe you and don't believe in your dream. The wealth choice may not be your best choice. Going back to what Andy Young said to me years ago, it was never about sitting in the front of the bus. It was about owning the bus. The wealth choice is probably our best and only choice.
Well, there you have it, guys. I hope you have enjoyed this episode. Let me share this with you guys. I have been steeped into books about finances lately. And I think one of the things is because I know for a fact and I clearly understand that I'm able to help far more people. I'm able to do far more good things when I have far more, right? But this idea of understanding money, I think I noticed that as a woman, right? And also as a minority, we don't have those conversations enough. So it's been one of those passions that has just been really tugging on my heart. The last book that I read was by Susie Orman, and she really does the step 1, step 2, step 3. But I love the way that Dr. Kimbro really just makes it applicable to any of us, right? No matter where we are, he didn't name not one thing that was not already available to us and within us, right? So that tells us that the problem isn't the quantity, right? It's our thinking about what we already have, right? And so I think that if we just really develop ourselves, and I love when he shared the idea that, you know what? Wealthy people have a different mindset about the books they read, how much TV they're watching. So these habits have to be developed. And one of my favorite words is cultivated. And cultivated means that it has to be something that you practice and you practice and practice. It's no different than with money, right? So to save money and to change our habits and say no to certain outings that, someone may want us to go to and be a part of, we might have to say no to that. You're going to have to practice saying no, right? It's not going to be a common thing because it's new, right? I think that there is so much meat here. I think there is so much that is invaluable that we can learn from. I know my book is going to be dog-eared. I know it's going to be highlighted. And it's going to be probably one of those books that I keep thrown in my bag and in my car. If you know someone who will benefit from this episode, if you know you have your daughter, your son, your nieces, your nephews, get them started early. I wish I knew some of this when I was in my 20s, but oh God, I wasn't ready for it, guys. If you know that you have someone you can empower at an earlier age, because let me tell you, Susie Orman has a calculator on her website. And if they're in their 20s, if they save like $100 a month, in 40 or 30 years, that with compounded interest would be about $1 million. I kid you not. And you can go on there at Susie Orman's website and see it. So, but guess what? If they don't have the mindset, if we're not cultivating the mindset that it takes for wealth by following these 7 laws, guess what's going to happen? The money's going to be spent unwisely. And that's why it always goes back to, it's not the amount of money that we have. It goes back to what we think about the money that we have in our relationship with the money that we have. Dr. Kimbro has fantastic resources online. I highly suggest that you look them up. He has 10 forms of wealth. I think you will be surprised at what order they come in, because we think that money is number 1 and 10 forms of wealth, money is number 3. It's not number 1 on the list. Actually, knowledge is number 1. So check him out on YouTube. That is Dr. Dennis Kimbro. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. If you cannot tell, I am absolutely excited and fascinated and inspired by it. Check me out at TanyaVetter.com. You guys know what I say. Be light, be love, be you. See you next time.